Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sox Machine Live. I am your host, Josh Nelson, and also alongside me is the managing editor of SoxMachine.com and the co-host of the podcast. It's Jim Margulis, as it is Thursday night, April 21st, 2022, as we bring you a new episode of Sox Machine Live. For those that are watching on our live stream on youtube.com/SoxMachine or watching on SoxMachine.com, or also watching on our Twitch page or even on Twitter, if you follow us on Twitter at Sox Machine and at SoxMachine_Josh. Hello, with this being a live stream, while you guys are watching us, there's a comment section for those that are watching on YouTube. You can pose your comments about how the White Sox did in Cleveland for this series, or any questions that you have. And if we have time, we'll try to answer them during the live stream. This is also must-see Thursday when it comes to White Sox Twitter, as our good friends from the 108 and their YouTube channel, youtube.com/from the108, they're going to start live streaming at 8 o'clock tonight Central Time. So after we're done, we're going to take you directly to them, and then you can hop over and watch their craziness. And I cannot wait to see what their reactions were for this week. But for those that are also listening to the podcast feed after the live stream, thank you for tuning in. And I wish that these were happier times. If you listen to us on Monday, the White Sox are 6-3, and they have won 3 series in a row. They have this upcoming 7-game road trip, 4 games in Cleveland, 3 in Minnesota. They come back home, 3 against Kansas City, 10 divisional games, an opportunity for the White Sox to add some distance from them and everybody else in the American League Central. And on Monday, a lot of teams in the American League Central were struggling. Unfortunately for the White Sox, they have left a steaming mess in Cleveland, Jim. Boy, these 3 games in 2 days, as weather knocked out Monday and Tuesday, so it kind of threw the schedule off kilter, as the White Sox and Guardians played a doubleheader on Wednesday, and then they played their 4th game, which ended up being only their 3rd game of this series today on Thursday. And Cleveland won all 3 games. So Cleveland sweeps the White Sox, and now we're talking about a 6-6 White Sox team before they head to Minnesota. But it's the manner of how the White Sox got swept here, Jim. Terrible defense. The offense, which we talked about, has to carry the load, has only scored 15 runs in the last 7 games. Dallas Keuchel gave up 10 runs in his start. And Tony La Russa is making some odd decision-making when it comes to guys that are playing out in the field and even his lineup. So where do you want to start with as far as what's the biggest mess for the White Sox as they leave Cleveland?
Well, I'm going to open with a modest proposal. Remember when the White Sox shifted from Ozzie Guillen to Robin Ventura, and everybody's like, wow, this team is a lot more focused and detail-oriented. They're taking their job a lot more seriously. And then they kind of faded out. And then Rick Renteria took over, and remember saying like, wow, they're playing with a lot more energy. They have a lot, leadership is respected. He's really cracking down on lackadaisical play. And then slowly that kind of gave way. And then Tony La Russa comes over and just like, oh, Rick Renteria took it too easy on everybody. Now we're getting back to basics, really stressing fundamentals, taking spring training seriously. And then you get a series like this. So my proposal to you, 1-year managers, unless they win the World Series, then they can come back. Otherwise, no matter what, 1-year managers.
Wow, that is a high standard we are putting up there. Not even the Yankees have that type of high standard, and the world is crashing on the Yankee Kingdom if they don't win the World Series. But you make a good point. It is fascinating on how, oh my gosh, everything is so much better, and everything is working great, and we're more focused. And you're right. Like, fundamentally, this is the worst that we've seen since the rebuild. And even for the rebuild season in 2018, I guess it was excusable, Jim, because the lack of talent. Like, if they screwed up, these guys are not going to be part of a contending White Sox team, because really they should be in AAA. They shouldn't be in the major leagues, but the White Sox are not trying this season, so this is why we have to put up with it. But Tim Anderson and Jose Abreu, let's call it the way that it is. They both had terrible series in Cleveland. I thought Tony La Russa had every right to pull Tim Anderson after the 2nd inning in game 1. and benched him for the rest of the game. Put him back in game 2 to give him an opportunity to rinse that bad taste in his mouth. But 3 errors in 2 innings, and then you kind of have the audacity to flip off the crowd because they're making fun of you. I'm sorry, you're being terrible. And then Jose Abreu with his multiple errors. And even today, when the game's tight, it's 4-3, and he gets 5-holed on a grounder with a runner on first. Like, I don't know what it was with those two, but Abreu and Anderson were not ready to play any of these games.
Yeah, Abreu had that scoop too on Jake Berger's error. That seemed like that's a play he makes most of the time. So he had a couple plays that were not counted on errors on his tab, but basically were. Anderson was like, it was funny. Like during the offseason, I wanted to write a post on how Tim Anderson's defense had changed. Basically not making sensational plays on the edges of his range, but getting better at like handling the plays within his range, the charging plays, the plays, to his left where he didn't require like a crazy spinning or sliding effort. Like he was a lot more solid on those plays. The problem was because of the lockout. They removed all the video. They wiped their video system of all current players and their tags. And so I couldn't do the post justice just because like I could scramble and find plays and make GIFs of everything using StatCast, but it wasn't as comprehensive as using the MLB.com tagging system. So I could never really get it done the way I wanted to. So I just tabled it for the time being, figured I have time to cover that same topic either later this year or maybe next winter. But given the way he started the season, I think I have to more or less set that aside because it was a rough series. And I think I did notice towards the end of the series, especially after the error to open the third game, today's game, his throws had more snap on them afterwards. Like he wasn't doing the flat-footed throw, the quick release, the sidearm. Like he was putting some snap on them, which I appreciated seeing, not just because they were accurate on time, but just because seeing these errors cluster on it, you always get this kind of, apprehension that there's some kind of yips thing going on to where like if every throw is that far off when he has time or he has like the footwork theoretically, under his control, and he's still doing this and he's dropping balls in a tag and he's he's booting a ball, charging it. Just, you think like, this is weird, and it's happened before with infielders to where they kind of lose these basic functions for a bit. And so seeing them cluster up on him was a little bit worrisome, but just seeing him making, more I guess authoritative throws, like making sure he got his feet and hips and everything else into them. And they're on target and didn't have the tail on them. Abreu didn't have to work for him. That was at least reassuring, but yeah, it was a really weird series, especially on his part.
Yeah. It's like he regressed back to 2017 version where he was still learning how to play the position defensively in the major league level. Hopefully, and he said the right things in the pregame presser today when he met the media, that he's glad that he had this experience because he knows how bad it was and he can learn from it and move on. Hopefully he does. I know that Tim Anderson is striding to be one of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball. He wants that title. He wants more respect. He doesn't want to be someone that's just barely in the top 10 of shortstops. He wants to be someone in the top 5 of shortstops in Major League Baseball. You can't have games like that. You can't. The top 5 shortstops in baseball do not have those type of blunders, especially the first 2 innings against Cleveland.
That's an Andy Gonzalez game.
Yeah, it is.
3 errors in a game. That's whenever somebody makes 3 errors in a game. Well, Andy Gonzalez made 3 errors in an inning. That's why I remember. But yeah, that's who comes to mind.
Yeah, good old. There you go, folks. That's your Andy Gonzalez reference in today's Sox Machine Live. All right. I love the banner that I created for this. For those on the podcast listening, I have banners that we have during Sox Machine Live. LEURY GARCIA batted third, not once, twice in this series.
Yeah, we're talking about him directly now. We kind of skirted around him last time, not wanting to sully an otherwise good and upbeat show by overemphasizing his slow start, but I think we can no longer dodge it.
We cannot. So my question to you, Jim, is why?
I guess the most straightforward answer would be left-right balance. Like that's why. I suppose. Like, just, when you look at the lineup on today's game, it was Tim Anderson first, Luis Robert second, Garcia was third, Grandal fifth, Sheets seventh. So they had the left right balance, after the two best hitters. But that's really it. Like, handedness is the only argument, and it's not even that good of one, just because, especially like with a pitcher like Plesac, the one thing that, I don't like, I shouldn't say the one thing, but just one thing that sticks out to me about LEURY as a left-handed hitter is that he keeps his front shoulder closed, and he, like, anytime somebody runs a two-seamer from his hip to the inside corner, he gives up on the pitch. Like, he has no way to really drive it or even put it in play. He just hopes that he reacts soon enough to foul it off. But otherwise, a lot of times he gives up on it. And so, like, if you have a pitcher like Plesac or any of the Cleveland righties that can just start it in on the chalk on the left-handed batter's box and run it into the inside corner, like, he doesn't stand a chance in those. So he's playing defense the entire time. So that's what, I guess, maybe if, and it doesn't even really make sense, but let's just say, like, LEURY as a righty batting third, still wouldn't understand it whatsoever, but at least I get it. But, like, or at least I would understand it if somehow, like, COVID struck or something like that. All of a sudden they're running up, all the righties from Charlotte, then maybe I could understand it. But when it comes to LEURY as a lefty, like, even Gavin Sheets had 3 good at bats against Plesac, driving the ball. He had the kind of quality at bats that we don't see the White Sox righties have from him. So this was a good test for Sheets in terms of, like, if they want him as a left-handed platoon bat, like, this is the perfect situation. And Sheets really acquitted himself well in the role. And that's a case where, like, sure, that's good. But he also that's Sheets' batting in this game, because, like, he earned enough leash last year to get these kinds of starts. So why not bat him third? If you're going to bat a lefty third, why not him? Why not have that, the guy who can maybe drive the ball better or who has the plate discipline to not be, to draw a tough walk? Like, that would be a good use of an unconventional, unproven third hitter. But Garcia, like, it seems like he wants to prove something. La Russa does. And it's either like, there's the classic, like, manager thing where just, like, they want to make sure that they're showing confidence in a guy that they think they're going to rely on. So, okay, but you can do that by batting Garcia 8th. As long as he's playing every day, you're showing confidence in him. He's not a top half the lineup hitter. So that doesn't really make sense. So then it becomes a matter of, like, well, I believe in him, and so it doesn't matter if nobody else does. But when you bat him third, it's like, you can say the game keeps finding him, but it's more of a matter of, like, it's not the game finding him. It's not a passive thing. It's La Russa making sure the game finds him, or La Russa making the game about him. And that's putting a player in a position to fail, which goes against, like, the entire, remember when La Russa was hired and he's still in that kind of radio silence period because of the
DUI.
DUI charge. And, everybody's having to do the talking for him until his case was settled. Miguel Cairo and other former players are saying, like, well, he never puts, he's always thinking 3 steps ahead, and he's always putting players in position to succeed. And that's that's really important to him. And, like, this is not that. Like, there's no way to defend this as that. Like, it's either pure stubbornness or hubris, but there's no case for LEURY batting third that is anything besides just making a statement that's bad. It's like making a statement with your butt, kind of just like, it's like grabbing the microphone and pointing it downward. That's basically what it is. And it's not doing him favors. It's not doing the fans. It's helping nobody.
I want you at some point this season, if you completely disagree with me, to grab the microphone and directly fart into it, is the way that you are just describing that situation with Tony La Russa. I mean, you're right, Jim. And that's the same complaints that I have. And our good friends over from the 108, Beef Loaf, don't mean to dunk on him too harshly. But last week on their show.
Sure you do.
Last week on their show, Beef Loaf's talking about on how easy it is to hate on LEURY Garcia, and no one should be complaining that much because he's the 11th best player on the team. He's only getting playing time because of the injuries. It's not that big of a deal. Well, suddenly it has become a big deal because LEURY GARCIA is just not some random guy on the roster. He is the pet of Tony La Russa, like the pet teacher. You go to school and the teacher's pet. Thank you. Yeah, every teacher has their favorite student in the class. And in the White Sox class, right now, that's LEURY GARCIA. And Tony La Russa said that he thought he saw something on Wednesday from LEURY GARCIA that inspired him to believe that Garcia is going to get hot real quick. And
then
if he's hot,
him.
if he's hot,
elsewhere, be amused in another medium.
Yeah, and if he's hot, you got to put him in the lineup. And La Russa was awarded with a 0 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. Garcia did score a run, but he ran Luis Robert off the bases.
He sacrificed Luis Robert so he could score the run.
I don't mean, I'm not going to be mean to Beefloaf, but he's not the only one that is quick to be contrarian and say, we are hating on LEURY GARCIA too much. This is not so much a problem with LEURY GARCIA. It is the main root cause. It is Tony La Russa. And this goes back to the offseason of why did Rick Hahn sign LEURY GARCIA? And White Sox, for 3 years. And now in hindsight, you should have just let him sign with Detroit, because I cannot imagine Rick Hahn waking up this morning on Thursday, checking his email and see that Tony La Russa is going to have LEURY GARCIA bat third on the roster in the lineup that Rick Hahn constructed from his office. I cannot imagine that they are on the same page with that. And we learned from, the book Moneyball and also the movie, and that sometimes general managers just have to get rid of guys so the managers don't play them. I kind of feel like in hindsight, Rick Hahn should have not signed LEURY GARCIA so he doesn't have this issue, because it's an issue today, and I think it's still going to be an issue in the upcoming weeks that LEURY GARCIA is going to get all this playing time.
Yeah, it was funny when the White Sox signed Garcia. It was right after my son was born, so I was still in the Hayes paternity leave period, to where I saw the news and I saw your post and I was like, huh. Yeah, just I also didn't have the mental bandwidth to give it more thought at the time. But then, as I thought more about it, I was like, yeah, I kind of don't like this, but I also don't want to pile on 3 weeks late, a late hit penalty. I just I'll get around to it and reviewing the off season. We got the lockout to talk about. We got another thing. I just don't want to be randomly, because, I understand Garcia serves a lot of purposes. He tries his best, and that sounds very damning with faint praise, but he does whatever is asked of him. So it's a case where oftentimes he's not put in position to succeed, but he takes whatever position, does his best, sometimes plays really well for weeks at a time, other times disappears for weeks at a time. But it's a case where it's not a matter of effort or the acumen, which is more of a matter of ability. But I just didn't want to write that post 4 weeks later and being that's weird and strangely bitter when you got other things to be bitter about when it comes to the business of baseball. So, but when they signed Josh Harrison, that's when I kind of had the opportunity to circle back, because my argument against Harrison was saying Garcia or Harrison, but not Garcia and Harrison, because they're both utility. They're both valuable for playing multiple positions. They're useful for needing somebody, but not useful for needing something. When you put Garcia in the lineup, you don't know what you're going to get from him. He's good at standing in a spot and playing adequate defense and not embarrassing himself out there. But he's not going to hit lefties well. He's not going to hit righties well. He's not going to play a position especially well. So he's there to stand somewhere and not embarrass himself. But when he's batting third, then that kind of undermines the whole thing. He doesn't embarrass himself when he's standing in a position and batting eighth or ninth. But when he's batting third, that draws national attention on him. I saw a whole bunch of people who ordinarily wouldn't be discussing a White Sox lineup card saying, what the hell is going on here?
Yep.
Why is Garcia, and you had the baseball reference hounds digging into the lineup and saying he might be the worst third hitter of all time when you factor in track record and presentability and who else is in the lineup. And that's a case where just in my argument against Harrison and Garcia was saying if both of them don't pan out, you've spent $11 million on guys who don't offer anything in particular. And that's a case where, like, if the White Sox have so little to add for outside dollars, that's really a sketchy or dicey way to spend money. And right now, I think between GARCIA start and Harrison start, especially since Harrison's been banged up now a couple times, and he had a couple of years lost to injuries, that right now we're kind of looking at that $11 million and going, ugh. So I'm trying not to overreact, but La Russa is making it very hard to not react when he's batting him third. Like, it's a case where I can ignore him batting eighth because I don't think it matters, but like whether who plays second base between Harrison and GARCIA and Mendick, like that position shouldn't matter. But when they're batting third, it matters. I'm not even somebody who complains about lineups. Like, by and large, like, I really don't care as long as like the top 6 hitters are all in some order. But it's just like, it's such a weird allocation and a weird statement being made that it feels like it needs to be dealt with. It's like, like the art that grabs your attention. It's meant to shock. It's meant to be controversial. It's like, oh, this is going to be banned in some countries because of how controversial. It's not really like, it's not great art. It's just more like, shock value. Like, I remember the whole the whole piss Christ thing being like, wow, it's Jesus in a jar. Like, but it's like, it wasn't, good art. It was just meant to like grab headlines. And this is like the same way. It's like controversial. It's upsetting. La Russa feels something, but nobody else feels it. It's just there for shock value. And that's kind of at least how it feels like. We have to talk about it because it's meant to be talked about, but not meant to be useful in any other way.
Well, he shocked everyone. We'll see if GARCIA bats third over the weekend against the Minnesota Twins, which we'll preview that series in a moment. Speaking of shocking, Dallas Keuchel. Oh, man. Well, okay, first of all, I felt bad for Keuchel in the first inning because the first 2 batters reach on errors, and eventually one of those runs scores, and it's an unearned run, and Keuchel is doing what we want Keuchel to do, generate ground balls. The White Sox infield defense is not doing a good job. The second inning, more terrible defensive play, but then he gives up a grand slam to Jose Ramirez on an 85-mile-per-hour cut fastball that's right down the pipe. And he's giving up some loud exit velocity numbers. And afterwards, he said that he felt he only gave up 3 hard hit balls during his outing, but he allowed 5 batted balls with an exit velocity greater than 98 miles per hour. So if we're being technical, it was more than 3. And at one point, he allowed 7 straight hits. It was ugly. And I know you wrote about this on SoxMachine.com this morning, Jim. It's only 2 starts, so we shouldn't be talking about DFAing Dallas Keuchel.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also been down this road before, and I'm reading out the White Sox history book and referencing the John Danks chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a bad feeling about Keuchel because this is 40 grade stuff with 40 grade command. The command was off against Cleveland in the second inning, and I understand that he's frustrated because the defense is playing poorly behind him in the first inning. But unlike Vince Velasquez, who caused his problems and dug his own grave in the first inning, allowing 4 runs against Tampa Bay, Velasquez bounced back, and he didn't throw his teammates under the bus and didn't provide tone-deaf comments afterwards. Keuchel consistently does this when he's not performing well. And it's not a him problem. It's, well, my teammates are not backing me up problem. How much longer is Dallas Keuchel going to be pitching for the White Sox if he doesn't bounce back?
This start is difficult just because, as I wrote about, he could have been out of the first inning in 8 pitches. He basically had the first 4 outs in 8 pitches because the leadoff batter of the second inning was a first pitch grounder to Anderson that he booted. So it's a case where he did his job. And the way I put it in the post was saying, like, basically everybody, when Keuchel takes the mound, manager, pitching coach, players on the field need to know, like, the first 50 pitches are what matters for Keuchel. Like, because if Keuchel's right, he's getting through innings on 12 pitches or fewer. And so it's a case where if he's rolling, like he should be able to get 4 innings in him, maybe 5 if he's lucky and has like a really aggressive contact oriented lineup like Cleveland had. Kansas City has similar lineups to where like he can have a couple single digit pitch innings to where he can get through 5 on 50 something pitches. And then after that, the contact's going to get louder. So you just have to stand by, have relievers ready after the 5th inning or 50 pitches, what have you. But it's a case where we saw him in the first, and we talked about him in this first outing that he was able to get the cutter in on righties and get the changeup sinkers away. And then he was able to get that cutter away on lefties. Like he was locating his pitches better, both sides of the plate with the pitches that he needs for those sides of the plate. So it seems like a strange about face to say like, oh, he can't do this anymore. I do think it was slightly revealing that Tanner Banks came in and threw 4 perfect innings, even though Banks, his stuff scales up a little bit, but not, he's not like a righty. Like he's not like Kopech coming in out of the bullpen righty, throwing 96 for a lineup built against the lefty who's throwing in the high 80s. This was a guy who has a little bit better stuff, or at least a little bit more velocity on Keuchel's arsenal, more or less. So it seemed like, Banks doing that undermined the case where, as you mentioned, it was, the defense's fault, or, he only had a few mistakes because the contact was getting louder. Keuchel, what I keep coming back to though is like everybody knows in the defense they need to back him up. Like he's not a strikeout guy. So I think he can get by with criticizing teammates a little bit more because that's the deal. Like that's everybody knows. And the errors were egregious enough to where, it's not like say like a infield single to where like, somebody tries to make a barehanded charging play to get a guy about half a step and the throw bounces down the line and gets an extra base. Like they weren't those kind of errors. They were nonsensical amateur errors, and everybody involved should feel bad. So the quotes didn't rub me the wrong way in terms of saying like, I think he said something to the effect of like, well, I think you seen it all. And then this happens. And he left it at that. I can see him venting a little bit just because that's what he needs in order to be a tenable starter. That's what he needs for everybody to get off his back. He needs, just competent defensive play. He got far from competent. So I understand that part. But yeah, when he goes in and says that he only made a couple of mistakes, only gave a couple hard hit balls, maybe he wasn't counting the grounders that shot through the infield with triple digit velocity because the launch angle was correct. So he ignored those. But that's a case where, going a bit too far. I can't quite follow him there. And it is, frustration. It does have tones of end of the line stuff, but to answer your question after this lengthy explanation, I would say that right now Giolito's coming back. So there's one starter. Johnny Cueto is he's scheduled to make his first start with Charlotte on Saturday in Nashville. I will be there for that. So we'll see what he has. I'm not inclined to pencil in Cueto yet because it could be like, speaking of Danks, like everybody wanted the White Sox to sign Tim Lincecum that year, and he had nothing. Like he had a worse year than Danks, and the Angels let him go. So it's a case where like name brand recognition, sure, new guy, but make sure he has what he has, and that the White Sox weren't able to get him a minor league contract because everybody understands he has nothing. Like, I made the Odrisamer Despaigne of a guy who throws the whole bag of tricks at somebody because he can't attack anybody a straightforward way. He needs all the deception, all the smoke and mirrors to try to get through 4 innings. So we'll see what Cueto has. And then I think, after Cueto's, we have some idea of Cueto, after some idea of Giolito being stable, then I think it's kind of a week by week proposition just to see how he looks. Jimmy Lambert, I think, can offer what Keuchel has when Keuchel's rough. The one thing I keep coming back to, though, is that Keuchel threw 160 innings last year. It takes a base amount of talent to throw 160 innings. Jimmy Lambert cannot throw 160 innings in a year. So, that's why I talk about the efficiency in the first 50 pitches. We'll see what it looks like next time. I mean, it could be an on-off, hot and cold type season to where like his ERA is trash because every other outing he's being lit up, but that might be enough to get through to Lance Lynn's comeback. And then we'll see where the White Sox are.
Yeah. I give it Memorial Day for Dallas Keuchel. I mean, he's given up 11 earned runs now in 6 innings of work. Like he's going to have to put up back-to-back 5 scoreless inning outings to get his ERA to normal. I think it's like at 16.5 right now. So his ERA is wrecked after this start. I'm going to give him Memorial Day. And then we're going to have some better insight on how everyone else is doing within the starting rotation for the White Sox. But this is a season, Jim, you don't want Keuchel to pitch 160 innings because then that option's going to pick up and then he's guaranteed in 2023. And
yeah.
I know we're not fans of manipulating service time when it comes to prospects, but you bet we are fans of manipulating service time of Dallas Keuchel this season. Yeah, that is not a smart financial move.
Yeah, for the record, I don't think he can throw 160 innings this year, but like if he throws 130, that helps the White Sox. Like I don't think Jimmy Lambert can throw 130. Like getting the triple digits for Velasquez, Lambert, et cetera, is going to be tough. So that's why Keuchel can serve a purpose if he's, in the 5th spot. But right now, because of Giolito being out, Lynn being out, he's right now the 2nd most proven starter. Kopech, fortunately, looks better to where like now he feels like a decent option behind Cease, but just more of a matter of can he withstand the grind of every 5 days, that sort of thing. But it's a case where like, if Keuchel can slide down to being the 5th most important starter, the crisis will lessen. And it'll feel like less acute. And if he gets roughed up one outing and pitches 5 innings, another one, like they can cross those days off the calendar. But anytime like he's 3rd starter or more, because Jimmy Lambert's behind him or Velasquez behind him, that's when it gets really uncomfortable. And that's where I think like it's a case where it does need to be addressed head on. But for the time being, hopefully Giolito lessens some of the pressure and then we'll see what Cueto has.
More starts like against Seattle. But if it's 5 innings or 4 innings that he's given up 5 or 6 earned runs in those outings,
Jimmy Lambert can do that. I'll say Jimmy Lambert can do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I bring up it could be another John Dake situation. People will say it's too much money to cut him. No. They've done this and they've done this before. They did it last year with Adam Eaton. They would not be afraid to let Dallas Keuchel go by Memorial Day if things do not pick up. And for Keuchel, we talked about this in our season preview with the starting pitchers, our friend Janice Scurio joining us. This is a big year for him because this is a fork in the road for your career. If you do not do well this season, I don't know how many guaranteed spots in a starting rotation opportunities you're getting moving forward in 2023 and beyond. So Keuchel definitely needs to pick up his game. All right, so we talked about many bad things. Let's talk about another terrible thing that happened during the game. Luis Robert got hurt. And according to Tony La Russa, it's a mild strained groin or groin pull. And he may need to go on the injured list. Great. But some good news, AJ Pollock is set to return along with Lucas Giolito. We'll talk about Giolito as we preview the Twins series. But Jim, Luis Robert, he was in a big slump. He did get 2 hits in today's game, Thursday's game against Cleveland, and hopefully that is something that could be used as a launching pad to get him back on track because the White Sox really need him to get back on track as the entire team right now is just ice cold offensively. But if Luis Robert does have to go on the injured list, who's playing center field?
Probably Adam Engel. Fortunately, he looks healthy enough to where he can handle it. I guess, the question or the answer might also be LEURY GARCIA because he seems to be the answer to a lot of questions. Although if Harrison's banged up, then Garcia has a place to play. But yeah, it seems like this is a good case for Engel. Adam Hazley is also getting a lot of run, and his at-bats haven't been terrible early on, but just seems like it's a case where as long as Hazley's on the roster, I'm going to be nervous that he's going to be played. But hopefully it's, Vaughn in left. It'll be Engel in center, Pollock in right. I guess Pollock can play center if need be, but just the Robert injury is frustrating just because, it got to a point where, last year, every time he ran through the bag, full effort on the ground to the left side, I was nervous, just like, oh, is this going to happen again? And I was just easing up on that, especially watching how aggressively he was trying to steal bases and taking off and being in motion and like, okay, he's fully back. So just when I started to relax on him being full effort, now here's another case where just a trip down the line results in a tweaked groin. And now here comes AJ Pollock coming back, but Pollock injured his hamstring on a not even that aggressive of a round of first and stop. It was just more of it was an assertive turn, but it wasn't like he had to slam on the brakes because of a sensational defensive play. Like he just wanted to make sure that the ball was picked up cleanly. He didn't have to, scramble to get back, and he hurt himself. So it would be nice to, this is a Goldie Simmons thing, and who knows how long this takes, but it'd be nice for the White Sox to get past this soft tissue phase to where like a number of players just make you nervous anytime they try more than 80%.
You mentioned Adam Hazley, and I kind of chuckle. I'm calling him Charlie Tilson 2.0 because I get strong Charlie Tilson vibes from Adam Hazley.
Yeah, it's like the 2 Adam minimum.
We couldn't see an outfield of Adam Hazley, Adam Engel, and Andrew Vaughn this weekend in Minneapolis.
Yeah, I mean, if Vaughn plays, it'd be useful.
That's a whole nother topic, isn't it? LEURY GARCIA's batting third. Andrew Vaughn's not playing. All you can do is laugh, because the other option is crying, and we're not crying in this episode right now. But to recap or to wrap up our conversation of what happened in Cleveland, the golden cog in the series goes to Tanner Banks, voted upon by everyone that follows us on Twitter at Sox Machine, and following me as well at Sox Machine _Josh. Tanner Banks pitched 4 scoreless innings against Cleveland after Dallas Keuchel was yanked, didn't allow a hit, didn't walk anyone, and struck out 2. So way to go, Tanner Banks. You are the golden cog of the series where the White Sox got swept. But hey, he's a 30-year-old longtime veteran of the minor leagues, just trying to stay alive and continue to stay with the major league club. And he's been pitching really well, Jim.
Yeah, I was afraid, a couple times this week. Like I was afraid that with Vince Velasquez's really rough start, when it looked like he might not get out of the second inning, that Tanner Banks was going to have to come in and throw 3 innings, tire himself out, and risk getting option to AAA. And then with Keuchel, same thing, and Banks had to pick up 4 innings. I kind of had the same fear, and that Dallas Keuchel or Vince Velasquez, pitchers on guaranteed major league contracts are going to cost this 30-year-old journeyman his job, even though he's done his job perfectly so far. Fortunately, in this case, that with Giolito coming back, they were able to option Jimmy Lambert down so Banks can hang around. But that was my big apprehension this week, is that Banks did nothing wrong, and just because he's tired and need a fresh arm, he's the one that has to get sent down to Charlotte. And then we're getting into the monkey's paw situation that we discussed in P.O. Sox with Mohammed's statement about how Tanner Banks isn't going to give up an earned run this year, and that's because he gets optioned down to Charlotte in April and somehow doesn't come back. He's a victim of his success. But in this case, all's well that ends well for him, and that he just continues to pile up scoreless innings. He undermines the Dallas Keuchel talking point in the process by retiring the Guardians in order as a left-handed pitcher who's not overpowering, and he's still around, and somebody else has to take the demotion. It's all good.
Yes. So congrats, Tanner Banks. You are the golden cog of the series where the White Sox got swept in Cleveland. One of the very few bright spots that happened in Cleveland. But now the White Sox, they get on a plane and they fly to Minneapolis. And guess what? They're going to be facing the Minnesota Twins. And guess what? The weather is looking terrible in Minneapolis for Friday and Saturday. Rain is in the forecast for both days in Minneapolis. So fingers crossed. Minneapolis is expecting to be 74 degrees on Saturday. Sunday, the high right now is looking to be 47. So huge temperature drop in Minneapolis, Minnesota during this series for the White Sox and Twins. I hope
a cold front coming through.
Yeah, I got a cold front coming through. It's going to, in Chicago, it could be 82 degrees on Saturday and sunny, and that's very exciting. But it's springtime, as you know, Jim. When are the tornadoes going to pop up? Like, when am I getting that tornado warning or tornado watch? This is the dangerous part of the season during spring in the Midwest, where you have these wonderful 12 hours of fantastic weather teasing you that spring or even summer is coming. And then you get these nasty thunderstorms and they end up canceling baseball games or even worse. So be flexible for this upcoming series between the White Sox and Twins, we could see more postponements, depending on the weather up in Minneapolis. But for the White Sox, we're going to get into the pitching problems for the White Sox first before breaking down the Twins. For the Chicago White Sox in this series, the probable pitcher starting on Friday, April 22nd at 7:10 p.m. Central Time. It is Michael Kopech, who is the probable starter. Saturday at 3:05 p.m. Central Time, it's Vince Velasquez. And then Sunday, April 24th, Lucas Giolito is scheduled to return. Everything has checked out, and he is a probable starter for the White Sox on Sunday. For the Minnesota Twins on Friday, their pitching probable is Bailey Ober. Saturday, Dylan Bundy. And Sunday, Chris Archer. And I feel like, Jim, if the White Sox cannot hit against Ober, Bundy, and Archer, I am very concerned for the rest of the season against right-handed starting pitching. I feel like even though they're in a drought offensively, in a severe cold snap, they should be able to hit these three. And if they don't, I don't think that's very promising for the rest of the season against better right-handed pitching. And for the Minnesota Twins, they are not off to a good start either. They are currently 5-8. They have the same run differential as the White Sox, -8 runs below. And for the Twins, the best aspect has been the starting pitching for them. But offensively is also the same frustration. Carlos Correa is hitting 196, and he's got 1 home run and 2 RBIs right now for the Minnesota Twins. They have several hitters that are in their lineup batting below 200. This seems like 2 teams on a collision course right now for this weekend in which neither team is hitting. So with this upcoming series, what makes the Twins interesting to you?
Yeah, this feels like, remember we talked about the Guardian series. That's going to be another jar type situation here as we learn new habits. But the Guardian series, I mentioned that Cleveland was basically in its most Cleveland form with, at the time it was 4 right-handed pitchers. It got whittled down to 3 after the postponements. But it was, right-handed pitching, top-heavy, contact-oriented offense, and we'll see what happens. In this case, the righties shut the White Sox down, and the offense was, they gave Dallas Keuchel fits, but even in the other games, like they were fine. The pitching was fine, but not great. Like Dylan Cease is okay, but made some mistakes with the slider, and they didn't miss 5 hits on his slider. So it was a case where the Guardians guardianed. And the White Sox just could not handle it. In this case, it feels like a lesser version of it, like dropping the degree of difficulty down from like all-star or advanced to beginner, or like rookie level, whatever you call it on the show. So it's like a case where like, Ober's fine. Ober's giving them tough starts in the past. Bundy's looks like he's having a rebound season. Archer's had a couple of short starts that are okay, but they should be more hittable, and the bullpen is more of a mess in Minnesota. Outside of Duran, who's been just a force of nature, they have major problems elsewhere. Both offenses are bottom 10. The Twins are ahead of the White Sox in OPS, but the White Sox are ahead in average and slugging. It's just the Twins have an OBP edge, but they're both below 300 in the OBP department. So, it's a case where there's a headline in The Athletic from Aaron Gleeman talking about why the Twins hitting 190 just can't be blamed on bad weather. So they're running on parallel tracks here with like, it's been rough weather, but also some disturbing trends underneath it. So there is going to be like a moment of truth time coming up for both teams in that at some point they're going to have to reverse it, and the pitching is going to have to be the pitching is going to have to hit. Like in this case, like the White Sox are facing, Ober and Bundy and Archer. They should be able to hit like 2 of those 3 guys to some degree. The Twins are probably looking at Vince Velasquez and saying like, well, we should be, look what happened the last time out. Look at his career. We should be smoking him. If we don't smoke him, we're in trouble. So there's a little bit of back and forth here for just, what each team has to prove. So, there's tension there. And then Byron Buxton avoided the injury list. He DH, so we might not see him in center field maybe the entire weekend, but looks like we're finally going to see Buxton in the lineup for the first time since 2020. So that's a case where it'll be good to see him
Will it?
Like, I mean, like,
Will
it's a
it,
case
Jim?
where, like, don't root for injuries, especially watching Luis Robert pull up
Yeah.
lame, like, just you apply the golden rule and just say you don't want to, fist pump somebody else's injury, especially when somebody's that talented and really can do some of the coolest things in the game. So that's why I say, like, it's good that he's healthy. It's maybe not good to see him. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. Hopefully Luis Robert is okay. And we see Luis Robert in this series. So we get to see Buxton against Robert, even though neither one is going to be 100% healthy for this upcoming series. Because as you mentioned, this is going to be the first time the White Sox face Byron Buxton since 2020. The White Sox did not see Byron Buxton at all in 2021. Dylan Bundy, in 2 starts, 10 and third innings, has only allowed 6 hits, Jim, and 1 run. 1 run in 2 starts for Dylan Bundy. That could be a tough game for the White Sox on Saturday. And then Chris Archer, who is trying to revitalize his career, 2 starts. He's only pitched 8 and a third innings right now, and he's only allowed 2 runs in his 2 starts. So while I don't think that Chris Archer has much left in the tank, and I don't think the highest of Dylan Bundy at this stage of his career, on paper, you look at what these guys have, and you would think, all right, the White Sox should be able to hit Bundy and Archer, but it may not be that easy. Hopefully they can knock him out before the 5th inning and get to the Twins bullpen, which, as you mentioned, Jim, has been another adventure for the Minnesota Twins early this season. But I think the key for this series is going to be in the run prevention side. Can the White Sox stop booting the ball around? Can they play a lot better defense, which behind Kopech and Velasquez and Giolito? Whoever's playing in center field, can they at least try to make up the gap with Luis Robert not being available? Can we not see Gavin Sheets play in right field? Please, for the love of baseball gods, can we not see Gavin Sheets in right field? I think that's going to be the difference in this series. Is going to be on the run prevention side. I'm expecting 3 low-scoring games. It could be a very similar series that we saw last weekend with the White Sox and Rays, in which the White Sox won 2 games in that series, but they won those games by a score of 3-2. I've got a feeling it could be very similar this upcoming weekend in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's, one of the weird things about the season is looking at, I was doing the sortable stats to see how the Twins offense was doing as a whole. And question for you, like, let's use like 700 OPS as like, Larry Garcia season. Like if he's over 700, that means he's good. Under 700, like that means he's not even, he's not holding up his end of the bargain at the plate. How many teams in baseball have a 700 OPS right now?
13.
11.
Oh, so close.
Yeah,
it's
the Padres are at 690. Yeah, it's like, like I think 5 teams got shut out yesterday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
A couple more teams got shut out today, or and I'm not counting the games that were in progress. But just this feels like another, especially with the humidor now being in all parks and the weather being cold, and just it seems like we could be on the precipice of another dead ball year. To where just, I don't want to blame it on the weather. Don't want to blame it on the ball because the White Sox are underperforming even outside of, we've seen series and games where the White Sox made good contact and had at bats that weren't fruitful. But we saw in this Cleveland series that they just also gave away a lot of at bats. In this case, like, it's going to be weird to watch this and try to figure out, like, what's the weather? What's the ball? What's actually the White Sox? And, when they struggle like they do against Cleveland and, they've been in this rut, like it makes it really hard to have moral victories, now to where like if they, sting 6 balls over 100 miles per hour against Dylan Bundy and they're lined out everywhere, it's like that runs thin after a while. Like the excuse does not hold up, even if it is a valid excuse. And you see so many other teams wrestling with having sputtering offenses that, like, yeah, it's as this drags on, just watch the other scores in the league, see how many 0 and 1 run games there are, outputs from the offenses. And that'll give you a better idea of just how much company the White Sox have. And when you see 5 teams get shut out in one night, it makes it, it doesn't absolve the White Sox, but also makes it seem like, well, try not to get too upset about this because you might be miserable all season when this is really an uphill battle for basically all but a handful of teams.
I kind of feel bad for Dave Dombrowski because he built that all offense, no defense type of team in Philadelphia. And now the baseball has changed and the ball is not carrying. And the Phillies they're not set up to play this type of style of baseball. But if this continues through May and June, because we know that Major League Baseball has no problem at all changing the baseball during the season, walking, the ability to draw walks is going to be crucial. The ability to play consistent defense, errorless defense is going to be crucial because you don't want to give up extra outs. And if you continue to put pressure on the other team by having guys on base, and if you can draw 2 walks and then you slap a single through the infield, if you're able to get a run that way, that's carrying the day for a lot of teams. The Twins just beat the Royals 1-0 on Thursday. The day before, they lost 2-0. So you make a good point, Jim. We are seeing offense down across the league right now. And a team like Cleveland, they don't scare you offensively, but they don't chase a whole lot. They put the ball in play a lot. They make solid contact, and they have one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball, Jose Ramirez. And they just consistently put pressure on the other team. And if a team like the White Sox falter and they bust, they sweep the White Sox. If a team doesn't bust, like the San Francisco Giants, then Cleveland gets swept.
Yeah.
So this is what we're seeing early on in Major League Baseball. When you have 2 offenses right now that should be performing better than what they have been doing with the White Sox and Twins this series, that's going to be key. Can the White Sox start drawing walks again? And can they not commit any errors and give up extra outs to the Twins?
Yeah, I'm also sorting by the home run column. The Blue Jays are a 3-way tie with the lead in home runs with 16. The Angels also have 16 and 13 games. The Braves have 16 and 14 games. 16 homers in 13 games is 199 homers for the season.
Yeah, that's way down.
Yeah. So this is, even with the weather and such, like, I mean, the Blue Jays play in a dome, the Angels are on the West Coast. So it's like, it's not all weather. It's, these are conditions that need to be contended with. And, as you mentioned, like, some teams will adjust. The White Sox seem to be adjusting early with a more contact oriented approach, but then Robert went to a slump and Jimenez has been hobbled with the ankle. So they've, had their legs, literally and figuratively cut out from under them a little bit. So, with Robert being out, you'll see if Pollock comes back, but this is going to be like we talked about before, like April's going to be about survival, but we just didn't know it was going to involve the ball being this dead. We're like, oh, it's about just, we're talking about the pitching surviving, but it's also going to be the position players just trying to keep their heads up and contextualize what counts as success in April 2022.
Yeah, really good points, Jim. And we will be recapping this series between the White Sox and Twins in the next episode of the Sox Machine podcast that will be available for you Monday morning. And of course, we'll be recapping all of the games all weekend between the White Sox and Twins. Don't forget about the Saturday Sporticle as well, as Ted will be stumping everybody. So that's all you have to look forward to from SoxMachine.com over the weekend. But that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live. Thank you to everyone that watched the live stream on our YouTube page at youtube.com/SoxMachine or on our website at SoxMachine.com. If you aren't subscribed to our YouTube channel, you can do so at youtube.com/SoxMachine. When you do, and we have either emergency broadcasts or scheduled Sox Machine Lives, you'll get a notification on your phone or any of your internet connected devices that, hey, Sox Machine Live is going to be starting soon. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, you can follow us on Twitter. We are at Sox Machine. I'm at SoxMachine_Josh. And if you don't get an opportunity to watch the live stream and you're in the car and you're driving to work, or you're going to have Easter celebrations this upcoming weekend or visiting friends or family, you can always listen to the audio versions of Sox Machine Live wherever you subscribe to podcasts, and if you subscribe to the Sox Machine podcast. If you are a longtime supporter of Sox Machine or a lurker or brand new to us, and if you don't support us on Patreon, think about doing so. Our Patreon supporters, they get more. They get exclusive content. They get ad-free versions of both the podcast and website. They get the first opportunity to purchase our new Sox Machine swag. We have monthly plans starting at $2 a month, and you can save with an annual subscription. And you can sign up at patreon.com/SoxMachine. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com, your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball, and part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.